On October 7th, Hamas did not attack the state of Israel. Hamas attacked the Jewish people. We were all attacked together, and that is one of the reasons why the people sitting in this room, I don't see you all as supporters of Israel. You are Israel. We were attacked. Hamas attacked the Jewish people, and we are in this together. And on October 7th, what we experienced as a collective was more than a state of shock, because it was a triple state of shock. We were shocked once because we were taken by surprise by Hamas, by its capabilities and by its sadistic cruelty. We were shocked. But we were also shocked when we saw how the Israeli defense and political establishment did not function in October 7th. The intelligence community did not offer a warning. The military wasn't there with the right forces. The government was incredibly dysfunctional. The system collapsed. And just like we were shocked when we saw Hamas attacking us, we were shocked when we saw how the system was not functioning. But then we were shocked for a third time. The third shock was when we saw the unprecedented Israeli heroism bursting out on October 7th. People from all over Israel hearing about what's happening in the envelope of Gaza, and with no one recruiting them, recruiting themselves, running into the battlefields, risking themselves, sacrificing themselves. You know, after every Israeli war, there's a committee of the Israeli military that its role is to measure acts of heroism, and there's some acts of heroism that meet the standard of itura gvura, of certain medals that you get for high levels of heroism. Well, it seems like, and this is not official what I'm sharing with you, it's definitely not official, but there's some reporters like Maya Polak from Makor Rishon that argue that there was over 120 stories that meet the standards of the highest military medal, which it's almost like all the heroism of the War of Independence, of the Six-Day War, of the Yom Kippur War, all that heroism is channeled and bursts out in one day in October 7th. What we see on October 7th, it started to seem like the hidden architecture of Israel, where you see a system not functioning from the top and tremendous bravery bursting out from the bottom. And the truth is that the architecture of October 7th reappears on October 8th. October 8th metaphorically, because actually October 7th lasted for more than 48 hours. But the day after, when over 300,000 Israelis are recruited to Miluim and over 150,000 Israelis are evacuated from their homes in the envelope of Gaza and from the north, this creates tremendous challenges. And the government wasn't there to meet these challenges, at least not in the beginning. It wasn't. But while it took time for the government to appear, to take care of all the tremendous logistical problems created by evacuation of families, recruiting, while the government ministries, it took them time when they weren't there because they weren't functioning at their best. We saw an unprecedented outburst of Israeli solidarity. The structure, the hidden architecture of October 7th on the military level repeated itself on the civilian level, something that's not functioning from the top, and the living spirit bursting out from the bottom. Bravery on October 7th, solidarity on October 8th. This might be the hidden architecture of Israel, but this hidden architecture of Israel enables us or can guide us when we want to interpret that solidarity. What do we see when we see this solidarity? And here's, I think, my best interpretation in light of this architecture, things not functioning from the top, but a living spirit compensating from the bottom. When Israelis saw on October 8th that heard that their soldier doesn't have socks, and then they heard that another soldier doesn't have warm socks, and then another soldier doesn't have socks, they realized that there's a shortage of socks. What did Israelis do? Well, the interesting thing is what they didn't do. Here's what Israelis didn't do. Here's what we didn't do. They didn't look at the system and saying, government, establishment, Israel, there's no socks. We demand, find them socks. That's not what they did. What did they do? They just organized and found socks and mobilized them and gave them to soldiers. That's what they did. And when they heard about a family that was evacuated from their home in the envelope of Gaza or in Shlomi or Kiryat Shmone or Metula, and that family doesn't really have where to go, here's what they didn't do. They didn't look up and demand government, Israel, take care of this. That's not what they did. What did they do? They figured it out. They found the solution efficiently, quickly, because the events of October 7th, 8th, till now, reveal something that we didn't know that exists, reveals something deep about Israelis and Israeliness. That solidarity reflects a hidden instinct, and this is the instinct. Israelis do not wait for Israel. Israelis they're not waiting for the country, demanding from the country. Israelis feel like they are the country. We are Israel, which reveals a very interesting brand of patriotism. Israelis did not invent patriotism. There's great patriots all over the world. In England, in Italy, in Mexico, in the US. But usually patriots feel like they love the country, and they belong to the country. Israeli patriots, they don't feel like they belong to the country. They feel like their country belongs to them. That it's theirs. That it's their responsibility. That they own it. That they have to save it. That they have to take care of it. That's the unique brand of Israeli patriotism. We don't belong to this country. This country belongs to us. That is the hidden instinct that was revealed in the apocalyptic moments of October 7th. The sense that so many Israelis feel a shared sense of ownership over the project called Israel. Amy Palmore, that was speaking before, she said, we are 1948, and this is our war of independence, and I hear that line again and again. We are 1948, this is our war of independence, and that's a very interesting thought, and it's very inspiring, because when the war of 1948 was over, that generation created Israel. Many Israelis feel that after this war is over, our job, our role, is to create Israel. In the Tanakh, in the Bible, great things happen twice. The world wasn't created once, it was created twice. Once, in 6 days, but then that world was washed away. It was created again after the flood. The Torah wasn't given once, it was given twice. The first tablets, what happened to them? They broke. And then the second tablets were the ones, by the way, the monarchy wasn't founded once but twice. Once by Shaul, that didn't stick. Only by David, that became the internal monarchy. Well, the books of history say that the state of Israel wasn't, like great biblical stories, wasn't created once but twice. The first time in 1948 and the second one in 2020, I hope for after this war is over. This is an optimistic vision, but we shouldn't be too optimistic. Because what we learned in this war is not only that Israelis have a shared sense of ownership over the project called Israel, and those energies can build Israel all over again with solidarity and unity, like Saul Zinger was explaining so powerfully in his great book, but also here in the panel. But if we increase the perspective, we have to notice that in 2023, we didn't only see the best of Israeliness, we also saw the worst of Israeliness. Between January 2023 and October 2023, for 9 months, Israel went into something that started to look like civil war, not a warm civil war, but cold civil war. It started as an argument over judicial reform, and that argument started spiraling, and it turned into a fight, into a poisonous fight, and that fight made us weak, and a weakness were detected by your enemies. And this is where we are now. You all know about the fight we had. This fight divided Israel into 2 camps. One camp, and I don't want to go into the fight now and to explain the fight, and I also don't have enough time. But both camps, both political camps, had very clear narratives, and their narratives helped them explain why the other political camp, the other side, is leading us to catastrophe. The right had a very credible narrative. Credible, I mean, they believed it, that the center left is leading us to catastrophe. The center left had a credible narrative why this right, extreme right-wing government is leading us to catastrophe. The war broke out, and as Saul said, there's unity, together, beyachad, nenatzeach. The war ended the fight. But here's something troubling and paradoxical. The same war that ended the fight might be the reason for the renewal of the fight. That war that brought peace between Israelis could be itself what will trigger the renewed fight between Israelis. And we already hear how this fight might look like. We hear it on Twitter. We hear it on Instagram. We hear it on TikTok. And in a nutshell, it sounds like this. The new narratives sound like this. Before the... Okay, so things are horrible. Now, okay. Not 3 minutes. Okay. So the new narratives sound like this. If the narratives of the fight before the war sounded like this, the other side will lead us to catastrophe. The new narratives are, the other side has led us to catastrophe. These are much more poisonous narratives, and if they're activated, the fight that becomes as a result of this war might be much worse than the fight that led to this war. My friends, I have shared with you 2 different perspectives. We saw ourselves on our worst version in 9 months of internal fight, and our best version, October 7th, October 8th, bravery, solidarity, and a shared sense of ownership. Which one of these narratives is the real narrative? Is this war going to lead us to have renew the shared sense of ownership, which will lead us to build Israel together after this war? Or will poisonous narratives reemerge, and then we might start ruining Israel while we fight with each other the day after this war? Where is Israeli history going? We don't know. This is the biggest enigma of our time, but we should not discuss this as intellectuals or as prophets trying to guess how the future is going to look like. We should all be street fighters trying to shape the future, to turn this war into to turn this war into a war of independence, to turn this war into the war that awakens the understanding that when we fight, we lose, and that we awaken a shared sense of ownership. Not only can we crush and defeat our enemies, but we could also rebuild Israel for the second time, like the biblical monarchy, like the Torah, and like the world was created, not once, but twice. Also, the state of Israel will have a new beginning after this war. Thank you very much.